Hey, this is me, Myron Golden. Let me tell you something that might just shake your spirit. Your breakthrough is closer than you think. You are not waiting on success. Success is waiting on you. And today, I'm about to hand you a mantra so powerful, so immediate, that if you apply it, your whole life can change. Not next week, not next year, right now. Faith-fueled action begins with a decision. Not a feeling, not a perfect plan, but a decision to move even when clarity hasn't fully arrived. Most people are waiting for signs, for guarantees, for confirmation that it's going to work before they take the first step. But faith doesn't work like that. Faith says, I move first, and clarity will meet me on the way. When your action is fueled by faith, you're not moved by what you see, you're moved by what you know. And what you know is that the vision placed inside you wasn't random. It wasn't an accident. It was planted on purpose, for a purpose, by the one who already authored your end from your beginning. That's why people who operate in faith look a little crazy to those who operate in logic. Logic asks, what if it doesn't work? Faith asks, what if it already worked? And I'm just walking it out. When you move in faith, you stop asking permission from circumstances. You stop looking for external conditions. Faith-fueled action doesn't mean you have no fear. It means the fear no longer gets a vote. Fear can ride in the car, but it doesn't get to touch the wheel. Action is the proof that faith is alive. You don't need to shout your belief. You need to show it by moving your feet when your knees are trembling. The world rewards execution, not intention. You can have all the vision, all the dreams, all the strategy, but if you never put your hand to the plow, you'll never see the fruit. And what fuels the courage to execute when the odds are against you? Faith. A deep knowing that something greater is guiding the outcome. People often confuse passivity with patience. Patience is not sitting still, waiting for life to change. Patience is faith in motion. It's consistent effort, laced with expectation. Faith-fueled action means you build like the rain is already coming. You plant like the harvest is guaranteed. You prepare as if the stage is already set. In the natural, it might not make sense. The money might not be there. The connections might be lacking. The timing might seem off, but faith ignores the forecast and steps out anyway. Because what faith knows is that provision always follows obedience. You don't wait for resources to obey. You obey, and then the resources show up. That's how doors open. Not when you stare at them hoping they move, but when you walk toward them with the expectation that they must. Faith-fueled action puts pressure on reality. It demands that your current conditions bend to your inner convictions. The atmosphere must adjust to accommodate a mind that refuses to quit. The enemy of faith isn't failure, it's hesitation. Delayed action is often disobedience in disguise. The more you delay, the more doubt creeps in. But when you act quickly, you stay in the rhythm of your revelation. You ride the momentum of belief. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to move while the vision is fresh. Faith isn't fantasy. It's not wishful thinking. It's a spiritual law, a creative force. It calls things that are not as though they were. So when you act from that place, you're not hoping something happens. You're activating what already exists in the unseen. You're partnering with heaven to make the invisible visible. This is why some people seem to win even when everything is stacked against them. They've tapped into a different frequency. They're not relying on talent alone or even timing. They're leaning on trust. Trust in the process. Trust in the promise. Trust in the power that backs their steps as your move becomes obvious. Every bold move you make sends a signal, not just to the world, but to your own mind. It tells your nervous system, we are not afraid to act. It rewires your identity. Because with every act of courage, You become the version of yourself that matches the vision you've been given. Identity is forged in motion, even when it's small, even when nobody sees it, even when there's no applause. The action itself is sacred because it's not about how big the move is, it's about who you become by making it. Faith doesn't require the world's validation to be legitimate. It simply requires obedience. That's where transformation begins. Not when circumstances change, but when you change. When you stop waiting and start moving. When you stop praying for signs and start being the sign. When you stop asking for permission to rise and start living like it's already done. There is something magnetic about faith in action. It attracts favor. It attracts opportunity. It creates momentum where there was none. People who were once ignoring you suddenly pay attention, not because you begged for it, but because your movement made them look. You don't have to be loud to be powerful. Sometimes the most faith-filled actions are quiet and consistent. Waking up early, making that phone call, sending that email, launching that product, turning off distractions, speaking life into yourself when no one else does. That's faith. That's force. And when you move in that rhythm long enough, your results will speak so loudly that you won't have to explain your process. The fruit will validate the root. The harvest will confirm the seed. Because nothing can resist a person who moves with belief and refuses to quit. Faith-fueled action will always require risk. But the greater risk is staying stuck. The greater danger is playing safe. The comfort zone is where dreams go to die. But movement, no matter how messy, creates momentum. And momentum creates. You don't need everything. You just need enough faith to take the first step. That step becomes a habit. That habit becomes a rhythm. That rhythm becomes a lifestyle. And before long, you look around and realize you didn't just believe the breakthrough, you became the breakthrough. Simplicity is not weakness. Simplicity is strength in its most concentrated form. In a world addicted to complexity, the one who can distill chaos into clarity becomes the one who leads. Power doesn't come from how much you know. It comes from how clearly you can act on what matters most. And clarity lives in simplicity. Simplicity isn't about doing less. It's about doing less of what doesn't matter. It's the ability to cut through the noise, strip away the distractions, and focus like a laser on the essentials. Power is diluted when your energy is scattered. But when your energy is focused through simplicity, it becomes unstoppable. People complicate their lives because they don't trust that simple things will yield powerful results. They think the more difficult it is, the more valuable it must be. But complexity is often a mask for procrastination. It's a way to delay execution by convincing yourself you need more information, more time, more validation. Real power begins when you stop trying to impress and start trying to impact. That's what simplicity gives you. The ability to move faster, think clearer, and operate with precision. Complexity clutters the mind. Simplicity creates space for wisdom to operate. It creates room for bold decisions and courageous execution. When you simplify your vision, your message becomes magnetic. People don't follow confusion, they follow clarity. A confused mind always says no, but when your message is simple, people lean in. They understand you, and when they understand you, they trust you, and trust builds influence. Success isn't about mastering thousands of things. It's about mastering a few things with relentless consistency. That's the power of simplicity. You don't need more. You just need to go deeper with what already works. You don't need to add more layers. You need to remove the ones that are blocking your breakthrough. Simplicity doesn't mean you're thinking small. It means you're thinking smart. The most elite performers, the highest earners, the most impactful leaders, they all have one thing in common. They understand the power of keeping things simple. They simplify their goals, their schedules, their systems, their speech. When you live from simplicity, you stop chasing everything. You stop reacting to every opportunity, every opinion, every impulse. You create filters, standards, boundaries, not because you're rigid, but because you're intentional. Because you know not every good thing is a God thing, and not every open door leads to destiny. Power is never found in trying to be all things to all people. It's found in knowing who you are, what you're called to do, and committing to that with ruthless focus. Simplicity empowers you to say no with confidence so you can say yes with conviction. It gives your purpose a backbone. Most people are burnt out, not because they're doing too much, but because they're doing too much of the wrong things. They've complicated the path. They've added extra steps, extra noise, and extra pressure. Simplicity sets you free from the addiction to busy and returns you to the peace of productive. There's nothing passive about simplicity. It's one of the most aggressive forms of discipline. It takes courage to edit your life, to subtract the unnecessary, to stop pretending that more equals better. Simplicity forces you to face your distractions and deal with your excuses. It sharpens your priorities. It eliminates the fluff. It calls you to operate with excellence instead of excess. Because true success is not about how much you can stack. It's about how deep you can go with what you've already been given. When you go deep, you build something that lasts. Simplicity in your strategy leads to power in your execution. The best game plans aren't the most complicated. They're the most repeatable. You win when you can do the same high-value things over and over with mastery. You build momentum by doing fewer things more effectively. In communication, simplicity is magnetic. When you speak with clarity, you command attention. You cut through doubt, confusion, and hesitation. A simple message gets remembered. A simple call to action gets results. The more clearly you speak, the more confidently people follow. Simplicity in mindset creates room for power in belief. When you're mentally cluttered, your faith can't breathe. But when your mind is simplified, focused on truth, purpose, and direction, your belief expands. You become anchored. You become unshakable. You don't need to believe in 100 things, just one thing deeply enough. In leadership, the best systems are often the simplest. Complex structures fail under pressure. Simple structures scale. They empower teams to act without constant oversight. They create freedom, not confusion. And freedom is where creativity and ownership thrive. Simplicity requires maturity. It's easy to overcomplicate things to sound smart. It's harder to simplify ideas so that anyone can understand them. But when you reach that level of clarity, you don't just sound smart, you empower others to move. That's real influence. When you embrace simplicity, you no longer feel the pressure to prove. You realize that what's essential doesn't need to shout, it just needs to show up over and over, day by day, moment by moment. Simplicity is not a lack of ambition, it's ambition with precision. Alignment is power in its purest form. It's the unseen force that connects who you are with what you do. And when those two elements are synchronized, results flow with ease. Too often people strive to prove, to dominate, to outshine, thinking power comes from being louder, flashier, or more aggressive. But real power isn't loud, it's aligned. And when you are aligned, you don't need to force anything. Things begin to move through you, not by you. Arrogance is rooted in insecurity. It's the voice that says, I have to look like I have it all together, even if I don't. It thrives on comparison and approval. But alignment doesn't care how you look. It cares how you live. It's when your actions reflect your assignment, when your voice echoes your values, when your direction is tied to something deeper than ego. Arrogance tries to build image. Alignment builds identity. Image fades. Identity endures. When you're aligned, you're not performing for validation. You're moving with conviction. You don't need to posture. You don't need to manipulate perception. You know who you are and what you were born to do. And that knowing guides every move. When you are truly aligned, peace becomes your compass. Not pride, not pressure, not performance, peace. And peace doesn't shout, it whispers. It confirms that you're in the right place, doing the right thing for the right reason. You don't need applause when you have peace. You don't need a spotlight when you have assignment. Arrogance is a mask worn by those who haven't done the inner work. It says, if I look confident enough, maybe no one will notice I'm not. But alignment doesn't fake confidence, it cultivates it, because alignment comes from truth. And when your life is anchored in truth, you don't have to pretend, you become unshakable. The aligned person doesn't need to be the loudest in the room. They are the most grounded. Their presence carries weight because it is rooted in purpose. Arrogance, on the other hand, inflates the ego while draining the soul. It demands energy to sustain a facade. But alignment gives energy because it is fueled by authenticity. You don't have to outshine anyone when you're aligned. You don't have to prove your worth when your worth is settled. That's the difference. Arrogance fights for position. Alignment flows in purpose. It doesn't hustle for worth. It operates from worth. And that internal security changes how you show up in the world. People confuse boldness with arrogance, but they are not the same. Boldness is a byproduct of alignment. It's what happens when your inner world and your outer expression are in harmony. Arrogance, on the other hand, is loud where there is lack. It overcompensates for disconnect. But alignment is calm and centered. It doesn't flinch when challenged. Alignment breeds authority, the kind of authority that doesn't need to raise its voice to be heard. People feel it. They respect it, not because it demands attention, but because it walks in integrity. And integrity creates influence. When what you say lines up with how you live, your words carry power that arrogance can never replicate. There's a flow that opens up. When you're aligned, things begin to work for you instead of against you. Opportunities show up without manipulation. The right people connect with you without effort. That's because alignment attracts what's meant for you. Arrogance chases. Alignment receives. To be aligned is to be submitted to something greater than yourself. It's knowing you are not the source, you are the vessel. You don't have to carry the weight of proving everything or being everything. You simply need to be in position. That posture of humility unlocks access that pride will never touch. Alignment simplifies your choices. When you know your values, you don't have to question every decision. You don't have to overthink every move. Your yes and your no come quicker. Your path becomes clearer. Arrogance clouds your judgment. It pushes you to say yes to everything to maintain control. But alignment gives you permission to choose wisely. The most powerful people are often the most humble because humility is the fruit of alignment. Not self-deprecation, but self-awareness. The understanding that your gifts are not just yours, they're tools for service. And when you serve from alignment, your impact multiplies. Your results speak louder than your ego ever could. When you operate in alignment, you don't compete, you collaborate. You're not threatened by the success of others because you're rooted in your own lane. Arrogance sees others as competition. Alignment sees others as confirmation that their winning is proof that you can too, without needing to outdo them. Arrogance isolates. It creates walls. It pushes people away in an effort to seem superior. But alignment invites connection. It builds bridges. It draws the right relationships towards you because authenticity is magnetic. People want to follow someone who's real, not someone who's pretending. In business, in leadership, in relationships, alignment is the advantage. It keeps you from chasing empty goals. It keeps you grounded when the pressure rises. It keeps you focused when the noise gets loud. And that focus is more powerful than any title or status arrogance could ever offer. When challenges come, and they will, arrogance collapses. It has no root. It can't hold the weight of adversity. But alignment endures. It has depth. It draws strength from the inside. It doesn't just survive storms, it's forged in them. Pressure reveals what you're built on, and only alignment can sustain you through the fire. Arrogance is exhausting, it's heavy, it's performative, but alignment is light, it's freeing, it's sustainable, because you're no longer playing a part. You're walking in purpose. You're not faking strength. You're flowing in it. And that shift makes all the difference. Immediate impact doesn't wait for the perfect timing. It doesn't beg for validation. It doesn't hesitate to calculate how things might turn out. Immediate impact is the result of immediate action. Bold, decisive, purpose-driven movement that refuses to sit still while opportunity passes by. You don't need every detail to take the first step. You need enough belief to act now. The biggest breakthroughs often begin with the smallest steps, but those steps must be taken quickly, while the fire is still hot, while the vision is still alive in your spirit. Delay is the enemy of destiny. Every moment you wait is a moment you invite doubt. The longer you think about it, the heavier it gets. But the moment you move, momentum begins. There's a power that gets released the moment you decide to act. Not to think, not to plan, but to move. Because action signals belief. It's not your words that prove you believe. It's your willingness to shift, to show up, to invest, to step out, even when you feel unprepared. Immediate action makes room for favor to flow. Most people don't miss success because they weren't good enough. They miss it because they were too slow. The window opened, but they hesitated. They talked themselves out of it. They waited for someone to confirm what they already knew in their gut. They delayed until the door closed. But impact belongs to those who respond with speed. The idea that just came to you, that vision that woke you up in the middle of the night, that's not random. That's a divine deposit. And it came with a timer. Some doors are open for a season. Some moments are pregnant with opportunity, but they won't last forever. If you wait too long, the moment will expire. You must move while the window is open. Immediate action requires courage, not comfort. It asks you to step into uncertainty. It demands that you trade safety for significance. But here's the truth. Clarity comes in motion. You won't figure it all out on the sidelines. Answers show up after you act. Breakthrough meets you on the path, not before it. The people who create massive impact don't have magical abilities. They just have the discipline to respond quickly. They don't overanalyze their calling. They don't stall with perfectionism. They see the open door and they run through it. They understand that speed is a form of honor to the opportunity, to the calling, to the moment. Every delay costs you energy. Every time you pause to question yourself, you leak power. Confidence is built by acting in the moment. When you train yourself to respond quickly, you condition your mind to be decisive. And decisive people win because they don't second guess their direction at every turn. It's not about being reckless, it's about being responsive. Immediate action doesn't mean you throw strategy away. It means you stop waiting for perfect strategy before taking a single step. Too many people are perfecting a plan they'll never use, but power comes from doing, not just designing. Some of the greatest opportunities in your life will show up disguised as inconvenience. They won't feel comfortable. They won't look easy. They might even feel like too much too soon. But if you're spiritually awake, you'll recognize the moment for what it is, and you'll move before logic talks you out of it. There is no reward for waiting your way into purpose. Waiting feels safe, but it produces stagnation. Action feels risky, but it births transformation. Every powerful story begins with a decision. Every world changer, every movement maker, every person of impact was willing to move when it didn't make full sense. You're not always going to feel ready. That's not a requirement. Readiness is a myth. Alignment is the goal. And when you are aligned in spirit, the nudge to act now is not pressure, it's permission. It's your signal that it's time to go. Immediate impact is born in that moment of obedience, when you move in faith before fear has a chance to speak. There's a certain confidence that comes when you make a move others are still thinking about. Not because you're better, but because you trusted your calling more than you feared your critics. While others are caught in analysis, you're already creating results. While others debate, you dominate through motion. Immediate action doesn't need applause. It needs intention. You're not acting to impress, you're acting to ignite. You're setting something in motion that will create ripples far beyond what you can see right now. But it starts with the courage to go first, to go fast, to go faithfully. Too often people say they're waiting on a sign, waiting on the right moment, waiting on confirmation. But sometimes the urge to act is the sign. Sometimes the idea is the confirmation. If it lit something up inside you, that fire is not there by accident. Honor it with motion. Fuel it with commitment. Drive it forward with action. Movement creates clarity. Clarity creates conviction. And conviction creates change. It's a chain reaction. But it starts with the initial spark of doing something now. Not later, not next week, now. Because there's no power in tomorrow. There's only possibility in today, and the bold are the ones who seize it. Now, you don't need to start big. You just need to start immediately. The first call, the first step, the first email, the first move. Do it while your heart is racing. Do it while your mind is still unsure. Do it because the vision demands it. When you act fast, the world responds faster. Favor follows movement, and miracles meet momentum. There's a future version of you waiting on the other side of that decision. A version that's bolder, stronger, freer, and more powerful. But you won't meet that version by sitting still. You'll meet them when you move, and the faster you move, the sooner you become who you were created to be. Confidence is not just a feeling, it's a force. It's a posture. It's an energy that fills the room before you even say a word. When you carry true confidence, people notice. The environment responds, not because you're loud, but because you're grounded. Not because you're flashy, but because you're firm in who you are and why you're here. Confidence doesn't beg for approval. It walks in with authority. It doesn't ask permission to take up space. It claims space because it understands its own value. The person who knows their worth doesn't wait for someone to validate them. They declare their presence, not arrogantly, but boldly, and the environment adjusts accordingly. People feel energy before they hear words. When you show up unsure, others sense it, even if you try to cover it up. But when you show up certain, when your voice aligns with your spirit, when your body language agrees with your beliefs, the atmosphere begins to shift in your favor. Doors open faster, resistance fades, people lean in, the environment mirrors your internal state. If you carry fear, fear will echo back. If you carry doubt, doors will hesitate. But if you carry confidence, true, authentic, aligned confidence, the environment cannot ignore it. It might resist at first, but eventually it will yield, because confidence doesn't just walk in, it leads. Confidence is a leadership trait, not a leadership title, a leadership trait. Leaders command environments not with force, but with conviction. The kind of conviction that comes from identity, from clarity, from inner agreement. When your inner world is aligned, your outer world starts taking orders from it. You stop reacting to the room and start shaping the room. Confidence is contagious. It's a transferable energy. When you bring it, you activate it in others, people feel safer, people feel stronger, people feel more permission to step up when someone else already has. And when you decide to be that person, you become the thermostat, not the thermometer. You set the temperature, not just reflect it. But confidence isn't a performance. It's not pretending. It's not putting on a mask to look brave. Real confidence is built on truth, on doing the work, on knowing who you are and standing in that unapologetically. That kind of confidence doesn't shout. It radiates. It doesn't force. It influences. Some people wait for the environment to make them feel confident. They wait for applause, for support, for the right vibe. But confidence doesn't wait, it creates. It sets the tone. It shows up ready even when conditions aren't perfect. And that readiness becomes the magnet for momentum. When you're confident, you stop over-explaining. You stop shrinking. You stop needing to justify your presence. You move with calm certainty. You listen more, speak less, but say more with every word. Because you're not talking to be heard, you're speaking to shift things. Your words carry weight. Confidence gives you the ability to walk into any room and know that your value doesn't change based on who else is in it. You don't get smaller in the presence of greatness. You stand alongside it. You don't get intimidated by success. You get inspired by it. Because confidence understands that there's enough space for everyone to win. The environment always tests you first. It was much more than your experience makes all inflated in the room, and it finds down to being half relied too high for a lack of honesty. And if your energy wavers, if your root believe what you say, the environment will dominate you. But if you stay rooted, if you stand tall, it begins to bow. Confidence doesn't ask the room to change, it changes the room. Confidence protects your time, your standards, your energy. You stop saying yes to things that don't align. You stop entertaining conversations that drain you. You stop tolerating environments that dishonor you, not from arrogance, but from alignment. Confidence gives you the authority to guard what matters. Confidence isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to move anyway. It's the ability to acknowledge uncertainty without surrendering to it. That decision builds momentum. Every time you act in spite of fear, your environment takes notice and begins to reward your courage with opportunities you couldn't see from the sideline. The confident person becomes a magnet, not because they're trying to attract, but because authenticity attracts. People are drawn to those who are sure of themselves, not because of their appearance or status, but because of their energy, their peace, their conviction. Environments elevate around people like that. Confidence changes your posture, the way you walk, the way you enter, the way you carry yourself without saying a word. That body language sends a signal. It communicates certainty, and certainty invites respect. Not everyone will like it, but everyone will recognize it. Confidence doesn't need everyone's approval. It needs your agreement. When your inner dialogue is strong, your outer world becomes obedient. The way you speak to yourself becomes the way the world speaks back. If your inner voice says, I belong, the world starts showing you doors. If it says, I'm not enough, the world starts echoing limits. Confidence begins in the conversation within. Every environment you step into is either going to shape you or be shaped by you. And confidence is what decides which one it will be. You either conform or you transform. You either follow or you lead. And confidence is what gives you the power to lead quietly, powerfully, intentionally. Confidence is not a gift reserved for the few. It's a decision available to the committed. It's built in silence, strengthened in solitude, and released when you walk into the world with your head high and your spirit aligned. When that happens, the environment has no choice but to respond. You were not created just to make it through. You weren't placed on this earth to simply exist, to repeat routines, to chase comfort, or to blend into the background. You were designed for growth, for multiplication, for dominion. Survival is not your calling. Expansion is. There is a blueprint written on your spirit that cries out for more, for progress, for increase. But culture has conditioned too many to settle, to shrink, to just get by. Survival mindsets are built in hardship, but were never meant to be a permanent residence. They teach you to protect, to conserve, to hold on, but you are wired to build, to create, to stretch. Expansion doesn't ask, how do I keep what I have? Expansion asks, how do I grow what I've been given? Because the true mark of stewardship is not preservation, it's multiplication. Every seed inside of you carries the DNA of expansion. No tree grows thinking about how to avoid the storm. It stretches because it must. It breaks through the soil because it was built to. The resistance is part of the process, but the design is never in question. You are wired for increase, not hesitation. Every gift, every idea, every spark of creativity in you is evidence of divine design calling you to expand. Survival will keep you playing small. It will have you thinking just enough is a blessing. But expansion reveals that overflow is the standard, that abundance is not greed, it's alignment. When your life is in tune with your purpose, growth becomes a natural outcome. Expansion becomes your default setting, not the exception. Your environment might be shaped around survival, but your identity is rooted in expansion. You don't need permission to grow. You don't need agreement from others to rise. What's in you is already greater than what's around you. The potential inside you is too massive to remain trapped in cycles of limitation. Survival says, don't lose. Expansion says, let's win again. Survival teaches you to play defense. Expansion puts you on offense. It reminds you that fear is a liar and lack is a mindset. It doesn't wait for opportunity, it creates it. It sees challenges as invitations, not threats. It sees problems as raw material for innovation. You were never meant to hoard what you have. You were called to release, to pour, to give, and in doing so, to receive more. That's the flow of expansion. It doesn't stop with you. It flows through you. You become the vessel, the channel through which transformation happens. But it starts when you stop thinking like a survivor and start thinking like a multiplier. Expansion demands vision. You can't grow if you can't see beyond where you are. A survival mentality only sees the next step, the next bill, the next crisis. But expansion lifts your eyes. It pulls your focus from what's missing to what's possible. And possibility is the fuel of progress. When you believe more is available, you move like it. Your belief system must be upgraded to match your design. If you think you're just here to make ends meet, you'll never pursue the overflow. But when you believe you were born to lead, born to influence, born to shift atmospheres, you begin to move differently. You begin to build structures that can carry expansion, not just survive chaos. Survival keeps you reactive. Expansion makes you proactive. Survivors wait for the storm to pass. Expanders prepare during the storm. They dig deeper. They root themselves. They build while others wait. Because expansion doesn't need perfect conditions, it needs faithful action. The fruit is in the forward motion, not the flawless strategy. There's a reason discomfort hits you when you stay too long in a place you've outgrown. That's not punishment, it's a signal, a divine alarm clock telling you it's time to stretch again. You were not made to plateau. The ceiling is an illusion created by fear. Every level you rise to reveals another layer of capacity inside you. Expansion requires risk. It demands that you leave the safe zone. But safety is often just a slower death. Nothing great is born in the comfort zone. Expansion lives in the wild, in the unknown, in the places where your faith has to lead because your eyes can't yet see. And when you move into those places, you discover the power that was dormant inside you. You are not weak for wanting more. You are not selfish for pursuing growth. Expansion honors your assignment. It says, I take this life seriously enough to do something with it. It honors the God who placed vision in your spirit. It says, I won't waste what I've been given. Survival preserves the gift. Expansion multiplies it. The world needs your expansion, not your survival. Your family, your community, your generation, they don't need you to just hang on. They need you to rise, to go further, to become more, because your expansion creates space for others to grow. When you break through, you break ceilings for the people coming after you. Expansion is spiritual. It's not just about money or influence. It's about capacity. It's about stewardship. It's about taking the raw materials of your life and turning it into something bigger than yourself. It's about obedience to the inner nudge that keeps whispering you were made for more. And that whisper will not stop until you obey it. Survival will keep you busy but not productive. It will fill your days but empty your soul. Expansion may challenge you, but it will fulfill you. It will pull greatness out of you. It will introduce you to a version of yourself you've never met, the version that isn't afraid to speak up, to take ground, to walk in authority. You were not born to repeat cycles. You were born to break them, to rewrite patterns, to shift legacies. Expansion doesn't just impact you, it impacts generations. Your willingness to stretch today becomes their foundation tomorrow. The territory you claim now becomes their starting point. That's how legacy is built. Through bold expansion, not cautious survival. Everything in nature expands by design. Trees stretch toward the sky. Rivers carve deeper paths. Stars explode into galaxies. Growth is the rhythm of life itself. And if creation expands, why should you contract? You are part of that same divine pattern. And your refusal to grow is not humility, it's disobedience to your design.